Good morning. Well, thank you for that nice introduction, and I can't believe it. You know, I have to tell you, I'm one of these people. I don't come out to Eastern Pennsylvania a lot. I'm from New Jersey, but when I do, I absolutely I get agita, you know, thinking I got to travel on Route 222. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm serious. This is one of the worst roads I've tried. I just don't like doing it. Man, yesterday, I can't believe it. I was actually praying to see Route 222. It's amazing. I was stuck on 15 miles of traffic on Route 78 coming out here. And I said, God, I'm very sorry I ever said anything about 222. So anyway, I'll go very light on that this morning in my remarks, but I was very happy to get on 222. That's amazing. Probably not many people can say that. But anyway, I appreciate you all coming this morning, and what I'm really here to do this morning is to give an outsider's impression on the progress that you all have made since I last gave a report card on the area back in 2005. And I do have some ideas on moving forward, if you will, in economic development, and hopefully they will help you as you lay a plan for the next 5 years in trying to create more and better quality jobs for Greater Reading. In my remarks this morning, which I think, John, are going to be posted on the website, is that correct? Okay, so anybody wants these detailed remarks beyond the overheads. I've got 5 components. First, I just want to highlight some of the trends that are driving corporate location decisions as we head into this next decade. Give you some high-altitude views, objectively, of the locational pluses and minuses as a trained observer would see them as they relate to Berks County, and then some thoughts on progress you've made since I last been here, and some ideas to move forward. Okay, let's see here. Yep. Okay, let's talk about location trends. Well, I have to tell you that from the years 2008 till 2010, it was the worst recession that I have seen. I've been in the business 35 years, and it was by far and away the worst time. It was a depression for corporate location. So, you know, what that meant was that it was a good time for economic development organizations to have a window of opportunity to retool and plan for the future, because there just was not much action. And I think you've done that, as evidenced by Ride to Prosperity. But other than a couple of industries, such as alternative energy, man, I'm telling you, this is the worst I have ever seen it. So getting even 1 or 2 new facilities to come into an area, or even getting expansions of existing, is a major accomplishment, because nationally we were in a state of depression in corporate location action. But beginning in the third quarter of 10, we saw an increase, and that is continuing today, and I believe is going to even strengthen in 2012. And what we're seeing is several sectors: capital goods manufacturing, distribution, okay, food processing, some biotechnology and pharma, believe it or not, which is a good sign. Back offices, you know, customer service centers and so forth, again, becoming pretty active. And research and development, companies, again, investing in R&D and putting up new centers. So this is a good thing. What I have not seen a lot of is in the consumer goods manufacturing. But that seems to be budding up right now as we're speaking. Good example would be Whirlpool putting in a manufacturing plant in Tennessee. Now, importantly, in this rebound, it is real important to note that manufacturing is a cornerstone of this growth, and it includes manufacturing here in the United States. Not that offshore isn't going to continue to be a factor. It is. It's a global game plan for most companies. But clearly, domestic expansion is important, and also reverse investment. About 18% of new facilities our foreign reverse investment. And we're seeing that like Honda Jet putting in a new plant in Greensboro, Carolina, Barilla, a pasta plant in upstate New York. We're seeing, and you know what's interesting? As the BRIC economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China, as they are developing and moving up the food chain, guess what? Their companies are also investing in the U.S. It's a relatively new phenomenon. So we're seeing reversed investment from developing countries. Embraer putting in its first U.S. assembly plant, an Indian company putting in a packaging plant in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. China, Suntech putting in a solar technology plant in Arizona. So this is really good. It's good for the world. It's good for the United States. So we're seeing some excellent activity here in the U.S., and we think it's going to continue. Now, what factors are most shaping where companies locate facilities? Well, certainly on the industrial side, logistics, supply chain, and that translates into market proximity. Companies are attempting to keep inventory at a low level, have efficiency throughout the supply chain, reduce costs throughout the supply chain. So it sounds ridiculous and paradoxical, but in a global economy, you will actually see more regional manufacturing facilities, again, because of the need to be close to customers. Not in every industry, but in many industries, such as plastics and packaging and food. So logistics, very important, and transportation costs. Labor market, we can't be lulled into a false sense of security relative to the availability of qualified labor in this country. Long term, there's going to be a shortage. And you're already seeing in some areas a shortage of skilled trades just as we're coming out of the recession. So labor market, what I call labor cubed, is really important. Supply, quality, and cost of labor now and in the future. Getting into a location where that advantage will be sustainable is going to be, it is very important. Coming out of recession, this is not atypical. What you'll see are companies delaying to the last possible moment the decision to deploy capital to invest in new facilities, and as a result, a premium gets placed on finding available buildings because it speeds up the process. So I would say that about 2/3 of our clients come in the door saying we will only consider areas that have an appropriate, modern, available building. And that's a major consideration today. Getting into business quickly, in other words, having sites that have all the utilities in place that are pre-permitted, where you can do fast-track construction, that's no longer an advantage. It is assumed that any area that plays an economic development game is going to be able to do that. Certainly, transportation services, 4-lane highway access is very important for most companies. Again, it's all part of that supply chain and logistics and efficiency. Electric power has moved up the food chain as importance in terms of cost, but also reliability. Companies are looking today to have minimal disruption to their business, and that's why you're seeing a lot of companies saying we want to be on sites where we have dual power feed from 2 separate substations. You get the same on the office side, dual telecommunications feed from 2 different companies, or at least 2 different switching offices to the building. Moderate taxation is important. Meaningful incentives are important. Incentives have really moved up. I think it's because companies, are just so cost conscious and are trying to wring every dollar out of their P&L that on the expense side, that incentives are an offset to expenses, and you're seeing incentives become more of an influential determinant once a number of successful locations have been qualified, and the incentives that are most desired are cash. Now, companies aren't stupid enough to think that you're going to give them all this money up front, maybe some up front, but what they're looking for are performance-based, oriented incentives. I say the Oklahoma model is probably the paradigm in this country where companies create jobs at a certain number, at a certain wage level, and they could be entitled to a cash rebate every quarter up to 5% of payroll. That is a significant incentive, and you don't get it unless you create the jobs, so you don't have to worry about all these clawback provisions and so forth. Unfortunately, a lot of the incentives that are out there today are tax credits. Most new facilities are branch operations. They're not necessarily profit centers, and they can't fully utilize tax incentives. For high technology companies, which I define as R&D centers or manufacturing with a heavy engineering content, typically when we do national searches, the long list of locations we will consider tends to be pretty short. And why is that? Because in high technology fields, critical mass is absolutely important. You know, in some businesses, like if you're putting in a new packaging plant, you don't necessarily want to be where you've got 100 other packaging plants and you're all competing for the same labor. But in high technology, that is a real advantage. So critical mass of talent, like if you're doing a biologics plant, having a lot of chemists and biologists and chemical technicians and so forth is really key. So at least having a moderate level of talent, companies, vendor support network, technical universities is very important for high technology, as is perceived quality of life, because you got to be able to nationally recruit as well, both experienced talent and young professionals. So high technology is a different kettle of fish, and it is tough to compete nationally in recruiting high-tech businesses because you got to have something that is comparable in the area and of at least noticeable size. Okay. Having said that, let's talk about some of what, again, from high altitude view. This is not the result of a 6-month study. This is just from a trained observer doing a limited amount of research for this presentation this morning. What would someone who's been doing this business and setting out on a site search nationally, how would you place into perspective what you're able to uncover from databases, websites, past experience, looking at Berks County? And clear to me, one of the major advantages, and it is relatively unique, is this geographic orientation. And this fits right into one of the major trends I mentioned before of supply chain, market proximity, and so forth. When you look at in a 3-hour radius in New York and in Philadelphia, and actually in the middle of the Boston to Washington corridor, that is a great advantage. And when I look at the business cost of operating here in Greater Reading and combine the two, in other words, a relatively low-cost option, one of the richest markets in the country, and the ability to tap the resources of New York and Philadelphia, it is a unique selling proposition. So that, to me, is probably the most compelling locational advantage that the area has to offer. It's in this area of market proximity and logistics. Talent pool is another. It's a double-edged sword. There's also a downside to it, but in terms of talent pool, you got a good critical mass here. I mean, the labor force is close to 220,000. I just did a horseback number looking at lower wage occupations, and I found that in blue collar 30,000 and in white collar 15,000. These are lower paying occupations. People are already at work looking to move up the food chain. It's for an underemployed pool, very strong, almost 50,000 underemployed. Now, unemployment rate is high. It's over 9%. That's bad in one way, but it's good in another way because it indicates an excess labor base. And if you look at the key skill sets required in skilled trades, semi-skilled machine operators, back office workers, there's a decent size here to draw from, and again, it's of a moderate cost. There's not a huge base of professional and technical talent such as engineers, but if you look at in the region, you're able to draw at least a cadre of those skills at a Reading or Berks County work site. It's pretty impressive that you've got close to 19% of the workforce engaged in manufacturing. The U.S. average is 11%. So again, companies looking for industrial skills, industrial labor, it's here in Reading, and it's of high quality. some 61% of adults, working age adults, have 12 to 15 years of education, well above the U.S. average. That's the target that we have for most manufacturing, distribution, back office operations. We want some work experience and 12 to 15 years education. And then when we look at the labor pool being supplemented by college graduates, and if you just look at the region, we excluded Philadelphia from this. It's amazing. You graduate over 10,000 people a year from four-year schools and almost 32,000 from two-year schools. So that's a significant addition to the labor market. This is very important to recognize. Reading is a predominantly non-union area. Its rate of unionization is equivalent basically to what you see in the southern states. And when companies, 99% are adamant about remaining non-union, it's not wages, it's really work rules and flexibility. The fact that this is a 6% unionization rate is a very important consideration, because the perception is that Reading is a unionized area, and it is not. And that's a major competitive advantage. There's reasonably good public education here, with many of the school districts outperforming the national average in SAT scores, which means you are sending into the workforce qualified people. Transportation resources other than Route 22 North, which I really do mean is a disadvantage, unfortunately, is excellent, because you got easy access to the turnpike. I-78 comes here. Reading can handle corporate jets. And then think about, three airports, two major airports within a couple-hour drive, and again, Allentown and Philadelphia, and also Newark. So that's tremendous. A lot of companies today in manufacturing they import raw materials. Many will export as well. Being near two seaports for same-day delivery of product is important: Philadelphia and Port Elizabeth, Newark. And a lot of motor carrier service. And when I was doing research here, I realized that you got a lot of trailers coming in and they dead head out of here empty. So there's backhaul opportunities. So you can get some really great trucking rates here in Reading, and you got a foreign trade zone. I think the utility infrastructure here is good. I mean, some of the sites need to be, you got to keep on developing and adding all the utilities. But when you look at MedEd and PP&L in terms of price, round a U.S. average, pretty good, especially for the Northeast. Power is reliable, and the shame of it is that it's not reported on any websites, but if you look at system-wide reliability of PP&L and MedEd First Energy, it is very reliable electric power, and that really does need to be documented and promoted, because it's a key consideration. And capacity is good. You got sites here that are served by natural gas. You got a lot of water, which is terrific for companies such as in metalworking or in food processing, and adequate water and sewer treatment capacity. Let me keep on this for a minute. Business costs that basically parallel national norms, which is really good. And if you look at, again, the cost of labor, electric power, occupancy, you're pretty much 10 to 15% below Philadelphia Metro or New York Metro. That's key. One of the good tax provisions in Pennsylvania is that personal property is not subject to property tax, and that's important for capital-intensive businesses. And I would say the state has fairly competitive incentives. Not great, not bad, but in the middle, you can at least play in the game. You do have several buildings that are available. There's 7 of them in the office sector, over 50,000 square feet. You got 14 industrial buildings, over 100,000 square feet. So there is some product here that is available. Quality of life is surprisingly strong. I mean, but when I see this cultural base, like the Penn Corridor, the restoration of downtown, the cultural activities that go on here, relatively low personal income tax rate, very affordable housing. The fact that you can actually work in Berks and commute to northern Philadelphia suburbs, and also take advantage of Philadelphia quality of life assets from a Berks location. All in all, you have to say a pretty good deal for quality of life. And I have to tell you, this is not being aggrandizing, but the economic development service that a prospect gets on a corporate location project is really second to none. BEP has a customer service that is really the envy of the industry. Believe me, I've been through it, and I can tell you that you're going to find none better. And I'm sure if you're an existing company, you're going to get the same kind of treatment in terms of retention and expansion. Now, as in every area of the country, there are locational liabilities, many of which you can't do anything about, some of which you can certainly rectify, and one that you are rectifying right now that is a serious deficiency. Remember I said we have some buildings. The problem is we don't have any, there's very few large-scale sites. And many clients today are looking for sites 50, 100 or more acres, and I'm not just talking about distribution, I'm talking about manufacturing as well. And so the paucity of large-scale sites, either to sell as a whole or to bring in a number of companies to that large-scale site, is a major deficiency and will greatly limit your ability to compete unless several new large-scale sites are brought on, and they got to be fully serviced, all utilities in place. Access going north is somewhat difficult via Route 222, and that does hamper and impinge upon a company's ability to effectively service markets from here. There is an emerging labor shortage, particularly if you see in skilled trades like a machinist and welders and machine maintenance. And that's something I think that you have identified, but it is just beginning, and it's going to have to be dealt with to be able to continue to attract manufacturing companies. You know, there are several school districts, including the center city, that way underperform national standards. This has an impact on sending qualified workers into the workforce. A little bit surprisingly, to me anyway, Greater Reading has over 17% of its adults without a high school degree. That's higher than a national average. That's something that really needs to be addressed. And it is a limiting factor, again, for a qualified workforce. When you see new companies coming into an area, the majority of their hires, if they're a plastics plant, for example, you're going to have maybe 15, 20% experience, you know, injection molders and so forth. And the rest are going to be qualified entry-level labor that you're going to train and teach the technology of the company to these trainees. And they need to have solid basic skills and computer literacy. That's what companies are looking for. So, you know, if you got a high percentage of adults without a high school degree, you got underperforming school systems, some of them, then the number of qualified workers that are going to be available to companies will be less than it ordinarily should be. You know, if you're looking to cite a high technology facility, you know, there just is not a lot of engineering and technical talent within the immediate commute zone, so that's somewhat limiting in terms of high-tech recruiting. Another limiting factor for high-tech recruiting is quality of life perception. You know, it doesn't jump out at you as a place where young professionals from around the United States would want to live. It is, but the perception is not there, so that is a limiting factor as well. And also, there is a perception that Pennsylvania, that eastern Pennsylvania in particular, is high cost and has a significant union presence. That is a perception. So many times, this region doesn't get on the radar screen because of perception. And that's unfortunate because Reading certainly belies that perception. You know, I know that having a wage tax is prominent and prevalent in Pennsylvania, but it is uncommon in the rest of the United States. So having a city wage tax is clearly cities, towns' wage tax is a disadvantage. And then you've got some statewide issues that do, you know, impede the attraction of business, and probably the most prominent is one of the highest corporate income tax rates in the country of almost 10%. There is a franchise tax. It is going to be phased out, but it won't be until 2014. Environmental permitting can be iffy. And also, when you look at all the national surveys, Ford, CNN Money, CEO Magazine, Pennsylvania tends to be ranked number 30 to 40, with 50 being the lowest, so that's nothing to write home about. And those are all issues, and some of those surveys are deserved because of business climate considerations in the state. All right, let's talk about progress made, at least some observations that I have on progress made since I was last here in 2005. You know, I think the creation of BEP was, you know, obviously very significant. It is not easy to have varied stakeholders support a group that will be dedicated to economic development, so just the fact that you pulled it off is to be commended. And then what I have seen in the past 6 years is really the attention to blocking and tackling, which is absolutely critical. You can't get ahead of yourself. You got to have the basics in place to effectively compete for new business and to get companies to expand here. So number one, getting commitment from stakeholders was absolutely critical. I think recruiting John Scott, a professional who was well-grounded, thinks clearly and logically, isn't off the reservation in terms of ideas, very, very important. Getting, sorry, John, but you get some leaders that, a board member will come in and say, hey, we got to go after this Mercedes plant or something, and you're on wild goose chases. That's not the way it should be done. And then building a effective staff. I mean, that's a very small staff that produces an enormous amount of work has been key. And then, initially tackling basic issues. I mean, one of the first things that BEP did was took an objective reading on the areas pluses and minuses. A major effort to look after existing industry. Cultivating is just as important as hunting, all right? Creating effective communications with stakeholders so that you all keep on supporting economic development is key. Building a website which is as good, really, I got to rank it in the top 10% in the country. And you don't know what this means, but I do. It has IEDC data standards. That means it's got the information that a site selector needs to be able to effectively evaluate an area. So it is a very, very good website. You've targeted industries. You got a limited budget. Sounds like a lot of money, $1 million a year. It isn't a lot of money compared to the kind of areas that you compete against. Many places are, Richmond, Virginia, spending $2-3 million a year on business attraction. So targeting industries is important. You got some good targets there. And I think securing adequate funding levels. I mean, that is, even though it isn't a premier budget, getting over $1 million a year in an area this size is a very good feat and it says a lot about the confidence in your economic development programs. In 2005, Greater Reading was not on the radar screen. I got to tell you, man, nobody thought about Berks County. It just did not exist as a place to do business. You would have to have, like an available building. There would have to be something that would really draw you to the area. You wanted to be next door to East Penn or something like this. The fact that getting Greater Reading on a radar screen, big deal. And that's because your marketing efforts, again, I say you've been doing smart marketing. It's been multimodal. You got a good website. You participate in the major trade shows where guys like me go, which is Cornet Global, IMAC, so very important. And I have to tell you that from a trained observer standpoint, I got to say your blocking and tackling initiatives have been successful. My peers definitely know where Greater Reading is today. It is clearly on the radar screen, very important. Because of what you've done with revitalization, industrial sites, you got your act together, you show well for umbrella groups to bring prospects your way. Governor's Action Team, utilities, real estate brokers, you show well, and that's very important for getting others to bring prospects your way because it's going to make them look good. You've had some new facilities and expansions in this downturn. It is amazing. Now, these are small companies, but that's the bread and butter of economic development. You recruit small companies and they grow. That's how you do economic development. I mean, Martin Steel, Adhesion, Biomedical, Hydrojet, MRD Lumber, these are good wins. So getting any of these in a recession like we have had, a depression and Quaker made meats, fantastic, S&W Metal. So to be congratulated. So these bread and butter activities have definitely paid off. And I think, you laid that groundwork, and then along comes something called Ride to Prosperity. So after having created the building blocks, then you say, now how are we going to goose up the engine and go forward and accelerate our success? And what I liked about what BEP has done and what Ride to Prosperity does, it recognizes the triangle of economic development. That's business startup or gardening, that's retention expansion or cultivation, and that's attraction or hunting. And so the ability to focus on all three areas has been very important. And I believe anyway that, Ride to Prosperity has and will continue to have a positive impact on job and income growth, economic stability, citizen pride and enthusiasm. You got a ways to go in this. Enhanced brand and reputation. I do not see a brand there for Greater Reading. What do you want to be known as? That's important, but it will be. I think you're going to have a better educated workforce when you look back and Ride to Prosperity's years. And I'm very impressed with the fact that companies will be on your appreciation of diversity of your population, including the Latino population, and clearly your quality of life is improving. You got to have good quality of life in addition to a good business climate. So I think the Ride to Prosperity goals are well-grounded, and if we look at the 5 major initiatives that you have, I just have a couple of observations. First, on entrepreneurship, I think this is absolutely critical. One way you get critical mass, particularly in high technology businesses, is to grow your own. San Antonio and San Diego are probably 2 great examples of grow your own in biotechnology, and now they have enough critical mass where they're regularly considered on national site searches. So, and when we look at the number of players that have been involved in entrepreneurship, the Chamber Resource Center, Franklin Partnership, Schmidt Training and Technology Center, the Community College, Kutztown State University, SBD, Small Business Center, and so forth, being able to get these groups together to provide coordination and almost a single source, if you will, for entrepreneurs to tap resources that are here is very important. You do not see a lot of areas that have well-oiled, well-coordinated business startup activities that tend to be fractured, so this is very important. The proposed incubator needs to happen. You got to have a good incubator in a business startup. But what I didn't see mentioned, and is a major challenge, is lack of venture capital. You can have all the startup you want, but you got to have some kind of venture capital to be able to help companies grow, get started and grow. So it's first and second stage. Now, in the area of workforce, I'm really impressed on the emphasis on career and technical education. That's where it's got to be. You adopted work keys. That's a great tool to be able to track the qualifications of workers in your labor force. Clearly, there's been a goal of improving public education, and I think you've had some success there. Emphasizing the value of entrepreneurship in education is important. There were 2 points of emphasis that I didn't see there that need to be brought into the mix, and that is a major push on adult basic skills remediation, and then promoting the socioeconomic value of technical careers is going to be key. In terms of your industry clusters, you got 5, targets: alternative and renewable energy, agri and food processing, advanced and diversified manufacturing, health sciences and biotech, and business and financial services. Those are logical targets. They're too broad. They need to be refined, but it's a good start, and I think it's produced some success. On the sites and infrastructure, it was clearly identified what the deficiencies were, and you're making progress in developing new sites. And when you look at some of these new sites, I got to tell you, they're impressive. I mean, you're looking at the Bethel Industrial Park, that's 325 acres. The Berks Research and Technology Center, I think that's about 75 acres. The New Morgan Mixed-Use Campus, several hundred acres. Amity Township Business Park at 300 acres. So if they can come on the market, again, with fully serviced, all utilities in place, it's got to be ready to go. That'll go a long way to solving a major impediment to economic development and job creation. It would also be important for each one of these sites, if possible, to have dual electric power feed. I mean, having electric power service, obviously you got to have power service, but having two power feeds would be critical, because that's what companies want. So there's got to be creative ways around it where you can work with utilities to be able to have that available, or at least have it readily available if a company needs it, and the same with telecommunications as well. And I'm a firm believer that there needs to be shell buildings created on these sites to be able to get prospect flow to these sites. You know, maybe the widening of Route 22 is not going to happen, but I think it's absolutely, to me, it's critical for long-term success to have unimpeded four-lane highway service from here to Allentown. And, you know, you did address performance metrics and Ride to Prosperity, and you don't have to get too you know, esoteric in terms of performance measures, but I mean, you're basically looking at jobs retained, jobs created, and capital investment, and then, you know, there's a number of other metrics can be that you build upon, but those are really the core basis. And then, of course, you say, hey, it's the number of companies we contact, and, you know, where we went now. But when it all comes down, how many jobs did you save? How many jobs did expanded? How many did you bring in? What was the capital investment? That's performance metrics, and you've got that information, which is good. Bottom line, I think that Berks County stakeholders have made remarkable progress. I mean, remarkable progress since 2005. I believe, and I'll go on record as saying that I'd like to say this nationally at several conferences. I think your efforts have been best of class. I really do, for communities of this size. Now, the challenge is going to be to go beyond what you've already done to extend your initiatives, particularly Ride to Prosperity, to refine. That's going to be key, refine and expand. So it's really building upon the successful foundation that's been laid over the last several years, and it's quite a good foundation. Okay, moving forward. You know, again, it didn't do a big analysis, all right? But it came out here to make a presentation to give you our impressions, my company's impressions of moving forward. So, again, this is just, you know, somebody's been in the business, so it's an educated customer giving opinions on what you may want to consider in terms of actions for the future. In my detailed material, I kind of broke out by subject matter, if you will, you know, your 5 blocks of focus in Ride to Prosperity, and made some suggestions on what you might want to consider for improving under each one of those cells. So I think all in all, I had about 45 ideas as you move forward, and they are, again, aggregated into the 5 categories. So just give you a couple highlights here. In terms of workforce, I think I had 9 major suggestions, and number 1 to me is to launch a public relations campaign that will be aimed at elevating the socioeconomic status and value of technical careers. You have got great programs at Reading area Community College and a number of other institutions, Penn State, Berks, you know, but I have to tell you, you don't have the throughput. You know, there are not enough people going through these technical careers. And part of it is that parents and adults just don't get it. They don't appreciate it, and certainly the students don't as well. So that, to me, is going to be important. Developing education programs in awareness as early as in elementary school for your industry clusters are going to be very key. You know, there needs to be a whole track of getting people educated and trained into the industry clusters. I think of Jacksonville, that has a tremendous program in aerospace, and they start kids thinking of aerospace careers in elementary school, which is going to be, to me, key as well. I know you're going to do this 2+2+2, which is getting college credit in high school, and that's going to be key. There needs to be a better effort aimed, and this means getting everybody involved, churches, not-for-profit organizations, mobile training and so forth, getting into the workplace, but an all-out effort to bring basic skills to adults that do not possess those basic skills now. I mean, if you got a workforce of 225,000 and 17% of them don't have basic skills, increase 17%, what are you doing? You're adding almost 20,000 people to the workforce that are going to be qualified. That's pretty good. You know, it's got to be a laudable objective. So that's going to be key in workforce development. I would have as a goal, I don't know if this is attainable, I realize there's special issues with the Reading School District, but you know, as a goal, having every school district, all 8 of them, exceed national standards in SAT and also in performance tests at various levels in grade school would be a goal, but having SAT scores above the average for every school and high school in the county would be a good idea. I think it's important to elevate the status of your 2 vocational high schools. Where I come from in New Jersey, there's a waiting list to get into our VOTEC schools. Like if you try to get into Bergen County Vocational School, you can't get in because a lot of families, including white-collar, affluent families, want their kids going to these schools. Why? They're strong in math, they're strong in science, they're strong in writing. This is the place to go. So elevating to make these the envy of public education in Berks County, I think would be a very, very good idea. And boy, just pounding on math and science at all levels throughout all the high schools here is going to be key. I also think that your Workforce Investment Board, rather than just doing training, ought to morph into becoming a resource for business in terms of advising companies on how to deal with HR issues. Hey, I got high turnover. I can't find these skills. My wages are rising. What can I do? So becoming an advisory council, almost like the manufacturing extension services, would be important for the workforce training. And I don't know if this can be done, but one way, that you might want to consider getting more students into technical fields would be some kind of a tuition abatement, and I don't know if it's through scholarships, I'm not sure how you do it, for kids that attend and maintain at least a B average, attend a community college and are taking selected courses that you deem essential for your economic future, being in technician or machine trades or whatever. That would be a big deal. The state of Georgia has a program similar to that that they use for both 2- and 4-year colleges. Okay, on sites and infrastructure, basically, the suggestions are obvious. You got to get these industrial parks that you're planning up to speed and with all utilities in place before you go and sell them. I would like to see each one of these sites be shovel-ready. I don't know if you want to go through a long certification process, but they need to be shovel-ready. They don't need to be pad-ready or any of this other terminology. They need to be ready to go, permits in place, everything done so that there can be fast-track construction. And I think that having shell buildings on each one of these sites would be important. I think there's some construction underway in Bethel right now. I'd be looking there to do maybe 250,000 square feet. Warehouse space, 35-foot ceilings. I think in your technology center, I would not limit this. There's not enough of a pipeline out there that you can fill this technology center just with research activities. It's going to have to be open to other activities as well. But having an incubator there is going to be important, and then also having office space, possibly with some wet lab capabilities, would be important, maybe 50,000 square feet. New Morgan, I'd be looking at light industrial, 100,000 square foot and 24-foot ceilings. So I think this is important. Also, having, you can call them red alert teams or whatever, but having a local team that would be available to a company coming into the area or expanding, where you can get, I'd say you should be able to get all local permits in 30 days if you're coming into a routine situation. Companies zone right for the right property. You'd be able to get, problem's going to be at the state level, but you at least ought to be able to get all your permits in 30 days. And I think widening Route 222 is essential, and I know the state doesn't want to give you money, so maybe a toll road, but it's got to be done. Okay. In terms of industry clusters, had several ideas there. I think the first order of business is to recast the target industries. And again, what you're trying to do here is the biggest bang for the buck. I mean, you want to earn a return on an investment. So it's not to say that any industry you come up with isn't a logical target. It's what's going to create the best number of jobs in the quickest time frame. My suggestion, I would shift health and bioscience. You've got a tremendous amount of competition there. You do not have the resource base a lot of other areas have. Even though it's impressive, it isn't what a lot of other areas have. There isn't a ton of chemists and biologists running around here. So I would shift this more into gardening and cultivation, business startup and expansion and recruitment. I'd certainly continue to focus on recruitment on medical equipment and apparatus. But in terms of other biotechnology fields, definitely shifting into gardening and cultivation would be my recommendation. I have the same recommendation on alternative energy. Same thing applies. There's this tremendous amount of competition out there. A lot of wind and solar has been going where the customers are in the Midwest and mountain states. There is some, but in terms of energy storage and efficiency, hey, Berks County can play in the national game, no question about it. The rest, be it biomass, solar, I would definitely, again, shift more emphasis into business startup and business expansion as well. So, in terms of focusing, focus is key. Saying that, we want to be advanced and diversified manufacturing, there is no such thing. I haven't had a client that called themselves an advanced diversified manufacturer. Nobody does. So what's important is to refine and target, and that's the process you go through. That's no question about it. This is what all areas are doing. So my suggestion is to have 6 target industries, and probably because you got a limited budget, prioritize them. You would have 3 that you would do all-out marketing. I mean, all out. You go all the trade shows, everything. Then you would have 3 that you do this very limited marketing, but you have them on your website. It would be known that you want these industries attracted to your communities. And the 6 targets that I would recommend are energy storage and efficiency, just not batteries, it's capacitors and flywheels, things like that. Medical equipment and apparatus, metalworking, such as fabricated metals, food processing, packaging, because of all the regional, I mean, you got the high tech, but you got everything right here for packaging, for all industries, particularly also as it relates to food. And then what I call business process operations, BPO. That would include everything from customer service centers to help desks to financial processing operations, insurance claims, shared services. And if you look at these targets, because I was very careful of examining the strengths, you have to have some kind of strength already in these industries or related industries. So if you look at all these industries, you now have strength. You have companies that are here that are successful. The idea is to expand upon, build, and create higher and better quality jobs where you realistically have a chance of doing so over the near-term horizon. So very important. You've got the corporate presence, the talent pool, the support network. There are tangible advantages for these industries to be here in Greater Reading. If you pin me down and say what would our top 3 targets be, I would label them as energy storage and efficiency because it's a growth industry. You've got a couple of major players here right now. I think adding to that is eminently feasible. I think metalworking, when I look at the skill sets here, the fact that you already have a good metalworking base, this could be from machinery to fabricated metals to decorative metals, things like that. Non-union, wages are good, power costs are here, it's terrific, so metalworking is a major benefit. And then in the white collar side, I really like business process operations. I mean, you got CNA Insurance here, Sovereign. You got a number of companies that have done very well here. There's a tremendous amount of talent in the market. You got a lot of liberal arts schools that can provide talent to these operations. So I think you can't miss in business process operations. Be that in small IT centers like in help desk to high-end customer solution centers, shared service centers, and so forth. My tier 2 would be, for a number of reasons, depending on the industry, would be agri and food. Now, that probably should be a tier 1, but basically because of the resources that you have, in my opinion, the food companies are going to come naturally. They will come over the pipeline, irrespective if you're doing a lot of marketing. So again, you have it posted on the website, you do some direct mail to companies and so forth, but it isn't the all-out effort that you would have in the other industries where it may not be so obvious that they come here, they're going to need a little goosing, okay? On medical equipment, I only have that as a tier 2 because everybody, if you look at probably the top 500 metro areas in this country, probably 300 have this industry as one of theirs. And a lot of these places have got medical schools and tough to compete against. One thing I would take a look at, you might want to make this a European situation. Because, if you were putting a plant, your first plant, a European company, put a plant in Reading, you can fly over here, get to Newark, get to Philadelphia, get to your plant within 1 to 2 hours. That's a great advantage. Plus, you have all the resources necessary to sustain a medical equipment manufacturer, and you got companies here that are doing it. So that would be a good idea. Packaging, I think, is, again, a strong industry, but I do believe that a number of packaging companies will naturally look at Greater Reading because it's a regional business. They have to look on a regional basis if you're serving New Jersey and Pennsylvania, New York State possibly. So probably you'll get a number of those plants looking at the area as well. And then when they see something on your website, oh boy, they got something for us. We got a resource base here, I think would be key. Again, this is just being realistic. On $1 million budget, you cannot go full bore on 6 target industries. There's not enough money there to do it. So 3 probably is max. So you have a tier 1, tier 2. Then there needs to be one-pagers put together to go on the website to say why Berks County. This is not testimonials. This is not blandishments. We got reliable power. Big deal. You got to prove it. So what exactly is it that makes you unique and distinctive in that target industry? That means you got to know what is their hot buttons and drivers and quantify, document why Greater Reading makes it in this industry. And they need to be posted on the website and made available as you go to trade shows and so forth. If you can't think of something, then that shouldn't be a target industry. And if what you come up with you could replicate in Kansas City or in Boise, then it should not be a target industry. All right, unique and distinctive is key. You do aggressive business recruiting, you got to keep on doing it. I personally think the budget should be expanded to about $1.5 million a year. That to me would give me a greater comfort level of an area the size of 500,000 population. You'll have to determine if that's possible or not. And I'd be looking for 3-year commitments on funding, so you don't have to be dipping to the well every year and getting sidetracked on funding when that ought to be taken care of. So you look at 3-year horizons. That is best practice in economic development, funding these kind of programs over 3 to 5 year horizons. There will need to be greater reliance on social media, but most economic development agencies don't know how to use social media. That's all about them. That's not the way it is. Nobody really cares where you're going. I don't care where you're going or what you're doing. What I want to know is that MRD Lumber located here. Give me like a case study. What made them come to, how did they go through the process? It's value to the community that you're trying to reach out to, not value to yourself. It's indirect selling when you do B2B, social networking marketing, be key. I'm also a big believer in podcasts. Anyway, don't want to get too much into that. Branding is going to be key. Memphis is known as the logistics capital of the United States. What do you all want to be known in Greater Reading? I don't really have an answer for it, but there needs to be. So I do know that this is a value proposition. This is a cost-effective location. I mean, nationally competitive cost within one of the richest markets in the world. And if you look at the ability to tap New York and Philadelphia resources at a cost level that is equivalent of North Carolina, that to me makes it unique, so something like that. Just a minor thing, I think having video tours of sites and buildings on your website would be key. And then I mentioned about the branding. And, if you're in your target industry, such as metalworking, well, if I type in metalworking site selection, I think Reading ought to appear on the first page of Google and Bing when you type in metalworking site selection. All right. And a small thing, I talked to Deb about this, increase in GIS capabilities on the website would be a pretty cool thing to do. Okay, quality of place, I had 8 suggestions there. And I don't know where you put this, but I think there needs to be an industry appreciation week, and you would use this as a retention tool. To me, I would combine this with an entrepreneur recognition week as well, where you would actually have contests of entrepreneurship in terms of inventions of kids. And you would, again, you'd take entrepreneurs to the schools, you take manufacturers to the schools. So you have a whole week of industry appreciation, particularly manufacturing and entrepreneurship. That to me would be key. And boy, this is where you really can be promoting the technical careers, and you can have workers come in and speak to kids and do videos on welding and post them on YouTube. You know what I mean? Do some cool stuff here, which I think is going to be very important. Downtown revitalization, can't say enough. Baltimore became a legitimate location nationally because people perceived the positives from the harbor redevelopment. So Oklahoma City, same thing. So downtown revitalization is critical. It creates pride, it creates a better sense of place. It makes you show well, it gives you national publicity, it makes it an easier sell for businesses coming into the area. You guys do support BEP supports Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Film Commission. Continue doing that. Having a Latino Appreciation Week, I think, is going to be key. Getting Latino leaders involved in economic development in terms of marketing and networking for Latino businesses, which are a very strong, growing business population in the United States, is cool. You might want to have somebody from the Kansas City Chamber, the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Kansas City, which is the most effective I've seen from a business standpoint, come out here, give you some tips on how you do that. And I would like to see a quality of life tour for Penn Corridor, West Reading, that would be posted on YouTube, and some pictures of quality of life here with trailers posted on Flickr. If this big farmers market or mercado could be created, that would be terrific. And I didn't see where you have like at least a regionally acclaimed, where people would want to come from New York and Connecticut and Virginia to a crafts and arts festival that would kind of highlight the heritage of this area. A big deal arts and crafts festival, again, to get the knowledge out there of this is exciting. There's a place where young people want to come. See, that's the key. And then in entrepreneurship, I had 6 ideas there. Certainly it's going to be important to track and to publicize the creation of new businesses here, particularly those that go beyond retail, that are selling goods and services outside the region. They have the maximum multiplier effect. That's important. You can't really have a great entrepreneur educational program until you say, hey, look at what people have already done here, and especially those that are coming through the system in terms of getting help from the various groups that are here. It's going to be important to align entrepreneurship with the target industry. So the greatest amount of focus that you all need to give with limited resources will be in startups that are in the targeted clusters. Doesn't mean that you forget the others, but you give them special consideration. There does need to be an annual Young Entrepreneur Awards program, invention program. I believe you have to have a physical incubator that will be established in a research and technology park. Venture capital is going to be key. So 2 things need to happen here, in my opinion. One is that there will need to be somebody, and they probably have to pay for this, that will be a resource to help network entrepreneurs into at least the East Coast venture capital pool. In other words, this person's going to have to know what it takes to get in front of VCs, help a qualified business prepare, and then get them in touch, get them into the network. And that's a big thing to do. The second thing I would do is create a regional angel investors network that would invest in Berks County companies if they were, if they could show that they had a good chance of making a profit. So it's going to be key. Entrepreneurship is not going to work unless there's venture capital, and it's tough to get venture capital no matter how good the ideas are. You're in New York, you still think, I'm going to invest in companies in New York, not necessarily Reading. You can try it, but you got to have a regional network as well of angel investors, I believe. And then there are certain things that are going to need to be done on a statewide level. You can't do much about it except to try to exert some influence. And some of the ideas would be this corporate income tax rate, in my view, maybe you don't do it now, but down the road you got to reduce it to about 6%. I would adopt a single factor, sales only apportionment, which favors companies that are selling their goods and services outside the region. And that's a good idea because that has maximum multiplier effect. Right now there's a very low limit of net carry forward loss, operating loss of $2 million a year. That should be eliminated, and you got to make sure that franchise tax does get eliminated in 2014. Pennsylvania ranks number 34 in the states in terms of legal liability systems for business. So the repeal of joint and several liability is going to be key, in my opinion, in the state. And there's a couple of other issues that I've outlined in here as well. On regulation, I think this new governor ought to say, I'm going to start with the environmental, and then I'm going to look at workplace. And we're going to look at every regulation that exceeds federal. And unless there is some vital reason why it needs to stay, it goes. That will go a long way to improving the regulatory environment. And then having a dedicated effort to expedite environmental permitting, particularly in routine projects, is going to be key and might even be able to be done online. And on education, I don't know if the state can also partake in tuition abatements for students that are going to enter technical fields, but I think it's a laudable goal. And if it isn't done, there'll be a lot of areas of the state that are going to have labor shortages in the future. So anyway, some ideas for the new governor. So in conclusion, I just want to say that I believe anyway that Berks County's future does indeed look bright from an economic development standpoint, and that's really because of the work that you've done and the fact that you're open to new suggestions, don't have thick skin, say, hey, what can we do better? And hopefully, my talk this morning will at least help you move in that direction of improving upon what is, in my opinion, been a very successful program, and you want to build upon and accelerate that success, and I think you will, and you will now have the economy working for you as well. So I appreciate it, and if anybody can tell me how I can get back to 78 without going on 222, I love you. I don't care how long it takes. But anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and by the way, for you Penn State fans, I'm a Cornhusker next year. There was a new sheriff in town. Thank you very much.